Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Podcast Daily. It is Freaky Friday, and there might be some football. There is a good amount of football. It's a mailbag version, but there's going to be some shenanigans too. Be forewarned, not everything in this show is going to be about Ohio State football. There will be plenty of it. Hopefully enough to keep some of you happy. Probably not enough to keep all of you happy. But bear with us. It's a holiday weekend, and it's the last week in June. There's going to be real football to talk about soon, I promise. And Bill Landis, Jeremy Birmingham, and me, Austin Ward, will talk about that when the time comes. But heading into the holiday weekend, there could be some weird questions and some weird answers.
I like shenanigans. My favorite restaurant.
I'm for it.
You're for it?
Yep.
I know you are. Okay. Well, let's start with football. Let's start with football then. How about that? Let's get it right off the top. And these questions, they all came from ohiostate.rivals.com. If you're not aware, you can get a free month on us using the code DT30, and it's there on the Horseshoe Lounge that we get these questions. And I thought that this was a pretty intriguing one. It lined up a little bit with something that I wrote about on Thursday, which is, let me see their exact wording, a player that no one is talking about that will have a role this season. Bill.
No one's talking about CJ Hicks, right?
I think a lot of people are talking about.
I haven't heard his name in months.
I haven't heard it in hours.
Yeah,
man, a player no one's talking about. That's really hard. I don't know. Like, does Mitchell Melton count?
Yeah.
Do we talk about him? I guess a decent amount, but I guess because they didn't like practice his position in the spring, we didn't talk about him all that much. It was sort of wait and see mode. But I do think, provided that he's healthy. And I guess that's a knock on wood situation because he hasn't played a whole lot in 4 years. If he's able to play, I think he's going to play a pretty significant role for the defense. I don't think that Jim Knowles wants to abandon that jack position. I think he wants to use it probably between, 15 to 30% of the time, depending on how well Mitchell Melton takes to it. So, and there'll be some splitting of duties there, I think, with CJ Hicks too, but we've not seen a lot of Mitchell. He's a pretty big mystery. We don't talk about him a ton other than when we mentioned the fact that he's not available and hoping to get back. But if he's there, I think he's going to play more than people realize.
It's a fair choice.
You're just not going to make one, Berm?
I think.
Next question, please.
I'm going to say
He's
that.
done.
And I believe, and I say this with all sincerity, the most important player on the Ohio State defense in 2023 is Ty Hamilton. And if Ty Hamilton can be a stout defensive lineman at the one tech who allows Michael Hall and Tyleek Williams to do their thing and to keep JT Tuimoloau out and Jack Sawyer and in man-to-man, one-on-one situations, I think the Ohio State defensive line will be absolutely phenomenal this year. If they do not get a impactful, penetrating presence from the defensive tackle position outside of Michael Hall when he's in there, I think the defensive line will be fairly pedestrian. So to me, it's Ty Hamilton. I think he is a player that has the opportunity to turn the Ohio State defense from a potentially good group to a potentially great group.
I like that a lot. That's a good pick. He feels a little underappreciated to me, but I also think that there's maybe another level for him to get to as well. So that's a good pick.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll see you next week.
I agreed with both of you. In fact, I wrote a fair amount about Mitchell Melton on Thursday. He was one of the three players that I think sometimes the injured people are the ones that don't get talked about a lot because they didn't participate in spring practice. So really you could make a case for any of the three that I mentioned, which were Mitchell Melton, Evan Pryor, and Jacob James. And I think of those three, Evan Pryor is probably the least likely to carve out a role this year, no matter how highly any of the three of us think about him, his potential. You look at how many people are coming back in that running backs room and then trying to carve out other position, a hybrid role. You've got Xavier Johnson and all those wide receivers to contend with as well. I think he's got the most uphill climb of anybody coming back from injury to get back out there. Jacob James could be one of the most important players on this team if he claims that starting center job. And we almost never talk about him other than a couple injury updates. We see him working out and the upper body looks strong and he seems fully cleared and ready to go. dating back to Thayer Munford when he was around, this guy is one to watch. He can step up the same way that they would talk about Josh Fryer. So Carson Hinsman had a great spring. Vic Cutler sort of got that to be closer to 50-50 in that battle by the end of camp, maybe tighter than we would have thought at the midway point, which was good for him, good for both of them, really. But Jacob James is the most veteran of that group, and he could be the starting center for a team that has more star power on offense than really anybody else in the country. But Bill can attest to this. You start every play with a snap, and the offensive line is pretty important.
It is important. I would like for everyone to acknowledge my personal growth and that I didn't pick an offensive lineman. And also, Austin, you and I did a special teams conversation earlier this week. We did not mention Evan Pryor among guys who could maybe do some of that return duty. Do you think maybe he's a candidate for that?
I did put him in there when I wrote about it on Thursday. The more that I thought about it, if there are guys that Ohio State wants to get involved and they don't know that there's going to be a tremendous amount of touches in the offensive flow, someone like Xavier Johnson also qualifies. I mentioned him in that conversation on Wednesday. Evan Pryor would fit in the same boat. I don't know that he reminds me of a pure punt returner, but when they tried Chip Taranum at kick returner last year, I would think that Evan Pryor could maybe do that at least as well, if not better. So he would have to be in that consideration. The problem is we just hadn't seen him do anything, and it's hard to figure out where exactly he fits because he's not going to be a top 2, 3, maybe even 4 running back. And that's not a knock on his ability at all. That's just the reality of the situation, at least as I see it. And I think Ohio State as well. There are tons of teams and programs around the country that would take Evan Pryor in a heartbeat. And a lot of them have tried to do so. Yes, have tried to do so. He is very talented. It is a massive bonus that Ohio State still has him. It is a luxury if they can find a way to use him. It is more likely in my mind that if he is stuck through to this point, that he envisions that could be a year from now, which is also fine. That's good for Ohio State, and it's good if Evan Pryor is okay with that. I'm not making a prediction on that, but it's hard right now to say out of at least the 3 that I sort of narrowed down for ones that we're not talking about, like for Evan Pryor specifically, to find a way to touch the football a lot.
Yeah. What about Jacob James? Can he return kicks?
I have him at the jack, actually.
Oh, great.
Who has a better chance to return punts, Jacob James or Marvin Harrison?
Oh, God.
Ooh, that's a good question.
I bet Marvin, probably.
Probably.
I was just putting you guys on the spot. See if
closer than the experts think, though.
Yeah.
Berm, this one is, I think, specifically for you.
Oh, God.
Comes from Ohio Bucks 1. He would like to know if would you rather have KJ Bolden or Brandon Baker if you could only have one?
Well, I would probably go with KJ Bolden in this specific battle royale, this cage match of recruits. Number 1 ranked offensive tackle in the country versus the number 1 ranked safety in the country. There's obviously a reason that you'd want them both. Ohio State with Ian Moore has a very, very high upside offensive tackle committed. After missing out on Caleb Downs a year ago, knowing that you're going to lose Lathan Ransom and Josh Proctor after this season, knowing that there's a very real chance you only have Sonny Styles for one more after this, and Jihad Carter and Cameron Martinez and Kai Stokes potentially, if it is possible to only have one more year after this one. I think you need a guy like KJ Bolden, who is as close to a Malik Hooker type free safety as Ohio State could find across the country, someone that has that ability to play center field at a high level and be a turnover machine back there. I think KJ Bolden, I would pick him in this instance, which feels weird considering how much we talk about the need for depth at tackle, but I think you can find a tackle in the transfer portal easier than you can find a future first round NFL safety.
This question didn't say it was specific for you, Berm. I had just assumed it was, and also I assume that because Bill's answer was pretty obvious.
Yeah, like I don't know. I think it's a good question. I actually might pick KJ Bolden too. I think that would signify something to me. Like we talked when we did the safety position, I think it was earlier this week, right? Or maybe it was last week. We talked about the future recruiting of that position, like when when the dam would break, so to speak, in terms of Ohio State starting to win some more of those national high caliber recruiting battles for safeties, which is apparently the most important position in this defense. So I think that would signify more maybe than landing a kid like Brandon Baker. They're both very important. I think it's close, but I think I would give the nod to KJ Bolden.
Yeah, you can't deny the impact that it would make for Ohio State to go into the heart of Georgia and take a player that Georgia and Alabama are going to some very extreme ends of things to try to pluck away from Ohio State. So I think the value there is immense.
Well said. Bill, how many times per game will Ohio State line up in a 2-back formation?
Buddy. I don't know. I get excited about them doing it every year and then they never do it. Unless you count the fullback stuff, which I think is not the spirit of the question.
But even that this year, there's no fullback.
Yeah, right. So that feels like it makes it less likely. They just have they have so much talent on hand at running back. Like if they were ever going to do it, I feel like it would be now. And I love the idea of Trip Traynham blocking for Trevion Henderson on a play. That'd be awesome. Or Mayan Williams blocking for Trevion Henderson. I think they'll do it. On a per game basis, probably less than once per game, but over the course of a season, I think we might see it 10 times. I think it's something they're going to have in their bag to pull out every now and then as a change up, given the talent they have on hand.
To me, think about the last couple of years, how often Ohio State on goal line situations has put out an extra tackle, put out a tight end out there at tackle, and then lined it up with a single back and tried to score. If you do that, but you have two running backs and you have different ways the play can go, and you have a lead blocker there, like the way that Mitch Rossi was used as a lead blocker and on some of those ISO plays, that's a winning combination. And it opens up the passing game a little bit and play action when you have two guys back there that can go to different sides of the field. And I think it's a great idea, but yeah, I would bet less than once per game probably.
I think the one piece of that conversation is Justin Fry's influence, I think, on the run game as now run game coordinator. I don't I don't know what to make of that title. I think maybe sometimes we make a little too much of it, but if he's really able to put kind of his stamp on the way that Ohio State wants to run the football, and he brings a little bit of what UCLA did, they did a decent amount of 2-back stuff. They had more of a running quarterback, I guess, the last couple of years that he was there with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, but I think it's almost like a Chip Kelly kind of staple, I think, to mix in some of that stuff. And clearly, Ryan Day is at least experienced in that. But Justin Fry, I think, has done it more at the college level as a coordinator when he was at UCLA. So maybe that makes it more likely.
What about the diamond formation?
That just seems like a bonus to me.
Remember when that was a thing?
Who's on the field in the diamond formation?
I would probably want to put out Chip, Trevion, and Dallin.
Yeah, I like that. I can get behind that. But then you're also taking who's coming. I guess who's coming off the field.
Well, that's
the question.
Just one of those lame wide receivers. Who cares about that?
As long as you still got Marv Solo on the far side, on the field side of things, you're good. Next question, please.
Yeah, you got it. I was trying to. I should have probably
the old question machine
prepared. This is a good question, but it requires maybe a more extensive knowledge of the record book. Maybe we'll just try it. In years past, this is from Booby Miles 30. He's one of our regulars. He's got multiple questions. They're very much appreciated. In years past, we've seen a few single game records broken: rushing yards by Trevion, rushing yards and receptions by Jackson Smith and Jigba. Actually, that was Trey Sermon, not Trevion. He just wrote Trey.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I adjusted on the fly.
Nice.
I think Trevion set the freshman record, so you can see how I might have been confused. I've got a lot of records floating around in my brain. If you had to bet a single game record to be broken this year, what record are you picking and which player is breaking it?
I have an answer for this. I'm just looking something up real quick.
I mean,
could Marvin catch 35 balls in a game?
I'd say 5 touchdowns in a game for Marvin would be achievable if they really wanted to go at it. I mean, if you line up Marvin against Youngstown State and want to get him 5 touchdowns, you could do that, I think, without a whole lot of problem. Now, I don't know if they would, but that's something I could see because I think pretty sure 4 touchdowns in a game is the record for Ohio State.
4 receiving touchdowns.
Yeah.
The Noah Brown record.
The Noah Brown game.
Of course. So that's one I could see.
Hello. Played the hell out of that record.
Bill, what were you looking up?
So this is one that has been flirted with several times over the last few years. It is touchdown passes in a game.
6.
The record is 6. Kenny Guyton did it once. JT Barrett did it twice. Dwayne Haskins did it twice. Justin Fields did it once. CJ Stroud did it 3 times. Eventually, someone's going to throw 7. Why can't
Kenny
it be
Guyton did it? I think Kenny Guyton had 5 of those in one half at Cal in 2012, or 2013. It was 2013. It was
he did it. His record was against Florida A&M in 2013.
How many did he have at Cal? I think he had 5 in the first half.
I think he had 5, and then that was it. Right?
Now you're asking me hard stuff.
I forgot about the game against the Rattlers.
I don't have that information available.
All right,
I can tell you that John Borton. Oh wait, that's a different record. Never mind. He did something against Washington State in 1952. No, that's right. He threw 4. No, he threw 5.
Big Game Borton. That's what he was.
Big Game Borton. I would bet watching someone throw 5 touchdown passes in 1952 is the equivalent of like seeing a dinosaur walk down the street.
Yeah, it's like seeing Ohio State run the diamond formation.
What can you tell me about punt return records? Never mind. Fuzzy Slippers 91 has a long, well-reasoned, well-thought-out question about Ryan Day, and it includes a lot of context. I will leave it out, but the gist of it is, do you think Ryan Day should have given up play calling duties this year, if that is what he's going to do? It basically, to give you some time to think about it, it gets into the stakes of this particular season, how much is riding on Ryan Day's shoulders, a lot of things that we've talked about. So given how much he has personally invested in this year and making it a success, was the timing right to cede some of that control?
I think that's a good way to couch it, because I think it'd be reasonable if your answer to that is no, he shouldn't have given up now. I think for all the reasons we discussed when we first kind of broached this topic, it is hard for a head coach to call plays. But he's pretty good at it. And to go into this particular season with a lot riding on it, with an unknown at the play caller position, with a brand new quarterback and like some new stuff happening on the offensive line, I would listen to an argument that now is not the right time. And I could be pretty easily persuaded to that side of the argument.
I would say no, it is the wrong time to do it. For that exact reason, everything is riding on this season for Ohio State in a way that it hasn't in a while. The back-to-back losses to Michigan. The fact is, I can understand where people get bogged down in whether or not he should have been calling plays last year, because we watched the offense feel a little bit disjointed from weeks 7 through 13. But if Ryan Day is the Ryan Day that he was against Georgia, if Ryan Day is the Ryan Day he was in the first 4 years of his career as a play caller, he should never give that up because he's brilliant at it. But the opportunity to be more of a CEO, which is something he knows he has to do in order to be a better long-term head coach at Ohio State, I think that is something he will eventually have to at least minimize and or compromise on. But to take his hand completely out of it, I hope he doesn't do that for Ohio State this year, because he is one of the best in the game when it comes down to it. But there's been so many other things topped on him and put on top of his responsibilities as the head coach in the last year that it made it feel like cumbersome. And I can understand why he thinks he should give it up. But if the Georgia Ryan Day is on the sideline, that's who I want calling plays every single time.
This will probably sound like I'm flip-flopping or playing both sides. I don't care. I would just say that my view has certainly evolved since November 26th, when everyone who watches this podcast regularly knows it felt like a change was overdue for that, and that Ryan Day was being bogged down by all the things that both of you alluded to. 1 month later, that was not the case, and the freewheeling, aggressive, almost at times reckless version of Ryan Day was back. And guess what? The results came along with it. And I think that's part of it for me. I also think that a lot of the other details that CEO attention requires that Berm alluded to have been resolved in some ways since then. Maybe not fully, maybe not completely, maybe not even to the level of some of Ohio State's competition in the South. But the things that were distracting him and weighing on his mind, I would say he feels much better about. And I don't think will require nearly as much of his attention. So factoring in a lot of those things and putting it into the equation, I think at the end of the day, Ryan Day has proven he's one of the best play callers in every level of football. Brian Hartline may become that, but he's not that right now. And so from that perspective, I would say maybe the gamble, if that's how you want to view it, or that change is less pressing than I would have said 6 months ago.
Yeah, I think it actually works in the best interest of Brian Hartline and Ohio State to have Ryan Day not be fully removed from it, because for Brian Hartline's development, to have Day's input as a play caller, it will benefit him. And so I think that as we go into the season, you will see more of a brain trust approach to things, and it won't be what we thought it would be in the spring, which was Brian Hartline's show when you just let it go.
Does that give you any? Because I think you're probably right. I think it will be more collaborative than just one guy calling the shots. But I don't know. I think we've seen that here in the past and didn't go that well. When Tim Beck and Ed Warner were doing it, and we were like, "Who's calling the plays?" And there was no answer
because Urban Meyer was calling the plays, and
well, he was calling the ones that mattered.
Right, he was letting those guys call the other plays, and then when they wanted their offense to run in the way that it was running, he was like, "Nope, not now. We're going to run QB power," and that's it. So I don't think it's the same worry because Brian Hartline has learned this from Ryan Day and Kevin Wilson, and he's been there a couple of years. To Ohio State went from Tom Herman, who's a brilliant offensive mind and play caller, to Ed Warner and Tim Beck, who were
not that.
I'm not even trying to
say it. Say it.
What I'm going to say is that I don't believe Urban Meyer respected them enough to let them call things the way they wanted. It has nothing to do with their careers or whatever. I don't think Urban Meyer trusted them enough to say, "I'm going to take your advice and run with it." I believe Brian Hartline will have to prove that to Ryan Day, that he's worth trusting, and that will bear itself out over the first few weeks of the season, I think.
Sounds like that belongs in a much more serious episode of the podcast daily. This is Freaky Friday, where things like who amongst the three of us has the most drip is what the people want to know.
That's obvious. Me.
It's definitely. It's not. It's. I'll eliminate myself in the conversation. It's certainly not me.
I think everybody automatically rules me out, and that's fair. I welcome it. That's fine. Bill has the best collection of T-shirts by far, and I don't know the best. I don't know the best way to measure drip, because if that's your standard, Bill would win. Who has the best shoe game? Berm by a landslide. I don't even think Bill and I are competing in that race. Like,
Definitely
we're just standing back and watching Berm unveil new pair of Jordans after new pair of Jordans. But
hey, I didn't get those when I was a kid, so it's like now that I'm an adult,
sometimes he doesn't wear those shoes, and he comes to press conferences
once or
with
twice.
bare toes.
Once or twice.
So is that drippy or slippy?
This is in the day when I was there just to record video. I'm not concerned about how my appearance was when I'm just there to, run a live stream or something like that. So I'm going to take the shot, and I'm fine with it. All right. I'm fine with it. I'm not wearing fuchsia shorts with lime green quarter zips or whatever you do. Okay. You look like a cherry 7-Up can sometimes.
Yeah. Guess what happens when you have a cherry 7-Up can? The condensation starts dripping.
So that's what we call Wyoming drip.
I mean, it's golf course drip. It's like dad core drip, and I'm running that game. Nobody has a better shorts collection than me.
That is true. I think I have two pairs of shorts that I rotate. That's it. Nice. Austin gets a lot of feedback from the coaching staff on his wardrobe choices. And also, Berm, you were practically barefoot at Big Ten Media Days.
And I mean, I was hiding while I was there. I wasn't supposed to be in existence there.
Kevin Warren saw your toes, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Why do you think he's out of the Big Ten now? Somebody had to step up and do something.
Maybe that's why Kevin Warren liked my shoes that day. Like he was just averting his gaze from Berm's gnarly toes.
It's like, Kevin, look at my piggies. Look at my piggies, Kevin. Look at my little piggly wigglies.
You by the way, you weren't the one hiding. The podcast debuted at Big Ten Media Days. You were on camera on purpose. The one who was hiding was the guy who were like, hey, just walk through the back of this shot or stand in the B1G letters and peek through to let people know he might be coming here.
Well, it is what it is. It was a good time. It was a good time. Sometimes I just like to be casual, you know?
It's true.
Speech burp.
I feel like this business is a little stuffed shirt at times. And I feel it's important every once in a while to just let it all hang out. And by all, I mean your tears.
Yeah. Okay.
I clip my toenails. My feet aren't all ragged.
Now he's worried about his toes. He's trying to remember.
Let's go off topic here just a bit. Have
we're already there.
Have you guys ever had a pedicure?
Yeah.
No.
It's a great time.
It's a great time. Austin, you should really get this done. You should line it up. It's the way to go.
I don't know how I feel about other people touching my feet.
You'll forget about it once
I was hesitant. Yeah. It's if you can get past that, it's quite relaxing.
Huh. Yeah, you feel like a new person when it's over. I don't think you realize how much beating your feet take on a day-to-day basis until you have somebody pamper them for you. Pamper my piggies, I say, when I walk in for my pedicure.
And then they call the police.
Can you please pamper my piggies?
Yeah, we were just solicited by this man. Let's get him out of here, please. If you could choose one player and one coach from this year's team to permanently host Freaky Friday with us this season and engage in as many shenanigans as possible, who are your picks?
I'm going to pick the coach first, and I'm going to say one Justin Fry, who I think is an extremely entertaining human being, and I think would be equally adept at serious conversation as he would, reckless shenanigans. So that's my coach pick.
That would be my coach pick too. I think he's a good storyteller.
Can't pick him, Bill.
Why?
Because I took him. He's mine now.
It's a double endorsement. I'm doubling down. It's on your endorsement.
Okay, double down.
I think he's a funny guy. He's a good storyteller. And if we were a podcast that embraced profanity, I think that'd be all the better.
Should we do that?
No,
probably not.
I don't think so. Austin, who's your pick for the coach? I'm trying to rack my brain on the player.
I would really. I think that Brian Hartline would probably be the best at it, or the most entertaining. But the guy who actually has,
I'm not sure,
media training and experience would be sweet.
So what we're experiencing here is a little bit of internet issue. Brian Hartline is the coach that Austin suggested. Where were you going after that?
That James Laurinaitis has the most training, extensive background, and a lot of storytelling. So, since he's not going to have regular press conferences this year, I imagine that's not something that they generally do for people who aren't on the full-time coaching staff list, which he will be eventually, I have to assume, or it would be a massive mistake for Ohio State. Maybe that'd be a good way to get him out there, is to have him on Freaky Friday.
Little Animal Story Hour with James Laurinaitis. I like it. I'm going to just say Steel Chambers as a player before someone else does, because the revelation of Steel Chambers' personality in the last year is probably one of the biggest storylines around Ohio State football in my mind. He's turned into such an incredibly awesome person to just talk to in an off-the-cuff way that he would be a perfect host for that sort of thing.
We definitely have to put an explicit tag on if we had him on the show, though.
Yeah, he's like
Guarantee.
Taylor Swift. He just drops in the S word every once in a while, just to tell people he knows it.
Yeah.
No, I think he does it a lot more liberally than Taylor Swift does it on her.
Well, not anymore. Her latest album is just full of it.
You're getting old.
Oh,
Player. I don't know, like Toby Wilson. I don't think he's a player people think about very much, but Toby Wilson is a funny dude, and he's also experienced on a microphone. He's got his own podcast, right? Doesn't he do one like with the OSU media or something?
with Toby,
Not anymore. Not
Zach
anymore.
Yeah.
And that's why there are conversations to bring a current player as a regular guest on Freaky Fridays this year. So we'll see if that happens or not, but Bill was just, maybe a little foreshadowing. We're trying. It's up to Toby if he wants to do it. And I think he does, but we'll see.
Toby.
The one that exists, I think the Lantern was helping those guys produce that. That is not going to continue. But I said, if you'd like it to, there may be a home somewhere else.
Oh, yeah.
So that's
Woody Wednesdays. Woody Wednesdays with Tobe Mado and whoever he wants to have on the show. It's a no-brainer. After practice, hop into the lounge and just get a little chit-chat.
Woody Wednesday is our show. He can't have that.
Yeah, but he gets Tomato Tuesday.
He's actually in the Woody all the time. It's
no, that's true.
And it could be Wilson's Woody Wednesday. www. .podcast.com.
I was asked to expound on what exactly the snake farm was that kept me away from Monday's show. And if you're thinking it sounds kind of nasty, well, it pretty much is. It is a reptile house that I assume that it started purely as a reptile house, but it is a more expansive zoo than just the snake farm. It is in New Braunfels, Texas. It's about 10 minutes from where my parents live there in Green. We took Liberty there on Sunday, see the animals. So that you go in, there are, 1,000 different kinds of snakes there. Every one that's walking or slithering the earth is in there. And I don't like snakes, so I would like to get out of this room. It's pretty interesting. I wonder how you wrangle up all of these snakes and then get them into their box in New Braunfels, Texas. But once you get out of there, it's started to remind me a little bit more of like Joe, the Tiger King, Joe Exotic. There's a couple lions out there. There's some alligators. My favorite was an armadillo that seemed like it was on cocaine, just running endlessly around its enclosure. I watched him for probably 30 minutes. I never really had any. He's not boxed in. I can like reach down and grab him if I want, but that would have ruined the experience of watching this armadillo just go absolutely bonkers and then try and dig his way out of there. I think it freaked out the rest of my family how enamored I was with this armadillo, but I thought it was the most interesting thing there. There's a petting zoo. There was a kookaburra that devoured a mouse right in front of us. Liberty, I think, really loved that experience. But that's the snake farm.
We were at the zoo like a month and a half ago, and a local like little small zoo around the corner. And
the other one's the house.
Yeah, basically. I mean, no, it really is some house. They just
drop your key in, and then
they've turned their backyard into a huge zoo, and they've got a couple peacocks. And I had never heard a peacock make noise before, like a peacock call before. It's terrifying. Like I'm not going to try to replicate it here because I don't think I could do it justice. And also, I think people
try.
What? No,
yeah, you need
it's like this bizarre scream that like
use your soundboard.
I think people need to just Google it. Okay, it's worth a Google. Go out there and Google peacock call, and it's weird. But I was like, this is amazing, and I watched it for like 8 minutes as it just kept screaming at other peacocks. And I don't know why I liked it so much, but the peacock was very cool. Those things are huge. You ever notice how large a peacock is? But I would rather go to like a peacock farm than a snake farm.
There were peacocks just out wandering around at the snake farm.
Deadly.
but they didn't scream. I don't know if these were just
these ones
trained peacocks that you.
These ones were in a cage, so they were
well,
probably trying to get me the hell out of here.
Got it.
How many of the animals were on Schedule 1 narcotics besides the armadillo?
Well,
It is.
let's see. It was a mountain lion that just kept staring at us in peacock shrieking. And my mom asked one of the employees there, she's like, why is that mountain lion so upset? And they were like, she's not upset, and just kept on going. I'm like, so that one was probably on drugs.
The way that big cats look at people in zoos is like a perfect embodiment of how I feel 90% of the time. Like
they had
slap the crap out of everything.
They had a python that was just like out for a show and tell show. I hope it was on some kind of sedative, because I don't like seeing that. Probably all of them. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's an accredited zoo. I will say that.
How else do you get them to behave, man? You gotta
Treats.
The question is the carrot or the stick. And in this case, it's the cocaine or the stick. When you're talking about snakes. Snakes love cocaine. Little known fact.
I've seen that movie.
Yeah.
Snakes on cocaine. Yeah.
It's the snakes on a plane doing cocaine. It's the sequel.
We should just copyright that right now. You need established IP in Hollywood, so we are just going to borrow from those too. What are you guys going to do for the 4th of July weekend? I'll say it right now, we are not going to have a podcast daily. The first consecutive days off that we have ever had during the week. Monday, we will still have the show at Roosters in the Horseshoe Lounge. There will not be a podcast daily on Monday morning, and there will not be on the 4th of July. That's a little programming update. Berm, what are you doing for the 4th of July?
Hoping to see family, hoping to be able to go outside in a world that isn't marred by Canada. Other than that, eat some hot dogs, eat a burger or two. Here's a question. Are you guys, like, if you're at a cookout, do you go straight to the burger or to the hot dogs?
Burger.
I would prefer to have one of each, but like if I have to prioritize one, I'm probably going burger first.
I think that the burger is the general consensus, but I also think it's the riskier play because not everyone that you eat at their home knows how to properly cook a burger. So like you can really get some bad burgers if people don't know what they're doing and they're just buying frozen patties and throwing them on a grill and not seasoning them. It's a dangerous play is what I'm saying. I think the hot dog is the safe route.
It's hard to mess up a hot dog. That's true. Did I ever tell you guys a story about when I was at a barbecue when I was much younger, like 11 maybe, for my brother's football team? Tremendous cheeseburgers. Maybe the best cheeseburger I've ever had in my life was at this barbecue. And it was so good that I was like, you know what? I'm going back to get another one. And I was making my way over to where they had the burger set up. Some kid thought it was a good idea to get a hold of a croquet mallet, and he was just swinging that thing around, and he ripped it back and hit me right in the face. And I never got that second cheeseburger. I did, however, get 8 stitches in my face. So it was a good time.
What?
Yeah.
How old was this youngster whipping around the croquet mallet?
My brother's age, so a year and a half younger than me, like 8 or 9.
Did you attempt to throw down with him, or did you just were you just knocked out?
I cried a lot and then went to the hospital. We did not throw down.
Have you ever had a concussion? Were you concussed? Officially?
I have had a concussion, not from that, but I got punched in the back of the head one time. I got a concussion, actually twice.
Who punched you in the back of the head to give you a concussion?
One time,
someone in Northeast Philly. I'm assuming.
Right. Both times were in Northeast Philly. One time it was a sucker punch. The second time I deserved it. I was making fun of somebody, and he got me good.
Austin, have you ever been concussed?
I have, yeah. A fraternity that I was a part of. You're not supposed to initiate anybody, but they had some ways around that, and it was a trust exercise of some sort where you're all supposed to go over a rope to the other side. You can't use, obviously a ladder or cheat or anything like that. And I was one of the first ones over, and these supposed brothers of mine were not strong enough to maintain their grip, and so I was 10 feet up in the air, tripped over that wire, face planted into the ground. Very lucky that I am alive. because my spine could have easily gone another way. Rest of the night required some medical attention elsewhere. So that, I think, is the only concussion I've had.
Wild. I've had two.
Nice.
One, I got hit over the head with a 40. I've told you guys the story before. Walking into the house,
A full one, right?
a full unopened 40-ounce bottle of beer. When I was 13, someone jumped me and my buddy and just smashed this brick over my head. I almost lost my ear that day. That was cool. And then when summer after my senior year playing baseball in a dugout, I was first base dugout. Our 3-hitter was up. He's a lefty and hit a 1-hopper off the concrete into the dugout and planted a baseball on the side of my face where I was bleeding out of my ear. And that was cool.
I was wondering why it said Rawlings on the side of your head.
Yeah. I've leaned into that. I got that tattooed that day.
Yeah, it never came out. Bill, what are you doing for the 4th?
That's a great question. I don't know. We've been doing a farmer's market a lot on the weekends. Probably do that on Saturday morning, and then there will inevitably be yard work involved this weekend. So nothing crazy. Maybe we'll go to the zoo.
We're trying to.
Well, the Columbus Zoo's, I don't believe it credited right now either, so it'll be perfect. Maybe we'll just have peacocks wandering around.
It's not what happened.
Not up on for the next.
Yeah, I think there was some embezzlement issues or some sort. I don't know. I won't weigh in. I think they're trying to get it back. They've always, seemingly been above board. I enjoy my Columbus Zoo experience. I don't mean to cause any trouble, but the Dispatch wrote a number of pieces about it a couple years ago. I don't know if they've got it back yet.
Wild.
Yeah, it is wild. The wilds, in fact. Somebody else asked me where I like to play golf most in Central Ohio, and I will be there this weekend for the Marysville Marathon at the Ridge Golf and Gardens. I cannot wait for that. It is our event we do every single year. Got 12 guys out there for a 2-man scramble tournament, 36 holes, jello shots, and whatever else we can find out there. So if you want to find somewhere to play golf that's affordable and nice and will let you have a great time, the Ridge Golf and Gardens is the place for that. That's where we'll be where I'll be this weekend. And when I can get Bill finally back out there to play golf, that's where I'm taking him.
You don't want any part of that. Trust me.
Maybe not. Anyway, this is it for Freaky Friday. Thanks for joining us for the mailbag version. It was a long one. Hopefully it'll sustain you through the holiday weekend. Hope you have a safe and happy 4th of July. Again, no daily on Monday or Tuesday. We will be in the Horseshoe Lounge at Roosters on Monday, and then normal content from there will resume on Wednesday, unless, I don't know, Berm just has something I don't know about, commitments popping or Bermanology.
You never know. It's going to be a busy weekend around college football recruiting. I don't necessarily think anything is expected for Ohio State this weekend, but we'll see. We'll see.
That's the only thing that could change it. So stay tuned for that. We won't know. There will be no warning. He'll just drop it on you out of the blue. But for Bill and Berm, I'm Austin. Thanks again for joining us. Have a great weekend. We'll see you then on Monday. Bye.